Going on, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the Wrestling Heroes and Insiders podcast, aka the Whip Show. You know what it is? I am Deshaun Whipdog Whipple, and I'm here with my co-host, Devastating Daryl Pace.
Hey everybody, how's it going? Great to be back. Another great show.
Daryl Pace, glad to have you on the show, as always, doing the thing, because you're like the guy that keeps us in order when we go too far. Because we get these wrestlers on the show, you know how they act sometimes, man.
Sometimes things get a little hot, they get a little heavy, a little out of control. We got to step in a little bit. I mean, we've had some guests. We've actually had some fans come to the house here, to the command center, and try to get a hold of some of these guys. So, yeah, we got to keep things in line.
About to break the quarantine, you know? Looks like you're keeping the control center pretty clean, though. I like that.
Yeah. We keep it spotless here. We're going 24/7 too here at the control center. We got night shift, everything. We're on.
That's what we're doing, man. We're making an impact right here in this podcast world. And speaking of impact, we got an amazing talent from Impact Wrestling. I've known this man for many, many years.
How long have we known each other? Let's get that out of
about
2 decades.
Yeah, man, at least 20 years.
Man.
And not only is he an amazing wrestler and an amazing referee, he is the only person in the world who can compete with me in this clothes game. Can we give it up for Mr. John E. Bravo? What's going on, man?
That was a great introduction, but I'm going to officially get the real name out there. It's John, capital letter E, period, Bravo. Come on.
You see how they do, Daryl? They starting already, man. He's starting already.
Oh, I'm about to start. I'm about to take over the show just for a hot little minute. Daryl, can I see you? Where are you at, Daryl? Let's see Daryl for a minute.
I'm right here. I'm right here in the command center.
How old are you, Daryl?
I am 43 years old.
You're 43. So you're old enough to remember Sesame Street. Am I correct?
That's correct.
You remember that song and that sketch on Sesame Street? One of these things don't belong. Guess which one? You remember that?
I remember that.
Okay, now look at my shirt. Look at Sean's shirt. Now look at your shirt. Now I'm not gonna lie. I'm a teeny bit offended that you didn't dress up for the occasion. But Daryl, this is the first time that I met you, and I kind of like you, so I'm gonna let you slide.
You know what? I apologize. Deshaun didn't tell me before the show started who the guest was. I didn't know.
Oh, okay. So there was a communication problem. Is that what's going on?
Of course.
Sean, I have to ask, where did you get that shirt? I've been dying to know since we linked up.
I cannot tell my secrets, but just know online shopping is a great thing. I'll just leave
that shirt is amazing. Do me a little favor. See how I got it unbuttoned like this? Unbutton. You're little stuffy right now.
Oh,
there we go. Get a little comfy. There you go.
We just missed Taco Tuesday. Don't make me show my taco hair.
Look how good you look now. You look more relaxed.
Now, guys,
nice and gold.
For people that's listening to this that can't see the video, I have an amazing gold shirt on right now. It is glimmering right next to the gold championship belt. Mr. Bravo, would you let the people know what you got on that can't see it?
I have a custom-made shirt from the company of Jogal. That's spelled Jogal. They have an online store. They're also on Amazon, and they supply me with all my shirts. The gentleman that actually owns the company, his name is Maton. He's from China. He actually watches Impact Wrestling all the way in China. And they custom make me all of my shirts, and they're nice enough to send me my shirts for free, because for them, they love seeing their fine clothing on the television. And it's a silver sequined black shirt, and it looks absolutely amazing. And I'm not even lying to you. I have probably about 40 different makes and models of these shirts currently.
And I'm glad you said that. If you can, make sure you send us that link so we can put it up there. But people want to go purchase the shirts. Now, is there like a promo code that says John E. Bravo? They get 10% off or something?
There actually used to be, but they actually have a lot of sales going on right now, so you don't even need the promo code. They pretty much, with obviously the condition of the world right now, everybody's having sales all around the world. So if you go on the website, they already have low prices. So go there, check them out, support them because they support me, and you actually will get a really low price and probably some good sales, to be honest with you.
Sounds good to me. Now, Johnny Bravo, I know you're an active talent. You can't necessarily drink right now, But don't be offended if I'm drinking wine on the show. I'm just telling you.
You know what?
Now.
I wouldn't expect anything less from you, Whip. I was expecting you to have some type of alcoholic beverage, and I'm perfectly fine with it, brother.
Daryl, I'm gonna let you know. Me and this guy go way back. He's seen videos of me singing to bottles of alcohol in my house on Facebook. So just fall in, Daryl. Just fall in.
Oh no. I'm excited. Now, Johnny, how are you handling the quarantine? Are you a person that can be quarantined? Like what's going on? Are you caged? Are you free? What's happening where you're at?
No, I'm doing everything that they're asking of us. You know, I think we all are. I'm doing the social distancing and I'm staying in the house. I'm only going out when I need food. When you do go out, you got to wear your masks. You know, even if you don't feel that you're sick, you know, you could be, and you don't know that you're sick. So you got to have common courtesy and wear these masks. You know, people always go, oh, but it looks weird or whatever. But it's a matter of life and death. You know, you gotta do your best to do what they ask of you, because it's out of our control at the moment. So everything's been good. You know, I've been staying active in the world of pro wrestling. You know, I've been coming out when they asked me to leave the house, but doing it all safely. What about you guys?
Daryl?
Same here. I got a luchador mask that I put on, and hopefully it's protecting the right areas. But no, I've been safe here, quarantine.
Does it cover your mouth, Daryl? Does it cover your mouth?
I have a mask on top of my mask. I have a luchador mask, and I put another mask on that one. It'd be 100%.
Well, thank God you have something to cover up that face. Just saying, Daryl. Come on.
Man, he's a true heel.
You know, you gotta live it.
With that being said, John, you guys are also doing like some of the other promotions, running matches, running shows right now with no fans. How was that as a performer? How can you do that? Is it hard to do it without that boom, 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 that reaction from the crowd?
It was one of the most interesting experiences I've ever done in my life, to be honest with you. You know, the joke can be made, you know, because we've all come up through the indies, and the joke can be made, we wrestled in front of 5 people, 10 people, and we're like, hey, man, I'm used to wrestling in VFW halls with nobody in there. But to be honest with you, it's really, it's surreal. Like, you do it, and because it's not just empty arenas, okay? Like, Impact has gone to great lengths to actually make us safe. So all the social distancing rules apply. Everyone's keeping the 6 feet apart backstage. You know, everybody's wearing the masks. You know, when they feed us there, they literally make sure our food is separated, so it's not a community bowl that we're digging out of. It's something out of a movie. You know, like it's wonderful that, you know, Impact can supply some entertainment in this time where people need distractions, such as your podcast here. You know, hopefully people are listening to this and enjoying it and forgetting about the problems of the world. You know, that's the goal of entertainment. But you can't prepare for something like that, because it's not just fans not being there, it's fans not being there and all these new rules that none of us are used to in our lifetime going into effect.
And how does that work? You know, when you're actually working in a ring, what precautions do you do before the match and after the match? Like,
before and after every single match at Impact Wrestling, because obviously it is taped, because there is no studio audience there. They mop down everything. They spray down and disinfect everything before the match. The competitors do their match. After the match, they have a crew there mopping the pads on the floor, disinfecting every single turnbuckle and rope. They have something called clear gear that kills coronavirus that they spray on the mat. So there's literally 15 minutes in between each match that we tape that there are people out there busting their butt, cleaning everything down, making everything virus free so the next match can happen. So that's the stuff that you don't see on television, because there's a lot of hardworking people behind the scenes that don't get enough credit for what they do. But they're out there busting their butt just so people can have entertainment.
And I want to give a shout out to Impact for doing that, because I'm glad you answered that, because we watch it as viewers and we just think they're not wrestling in the ring. You know, the fans, we complain, oh my God, there's no fans. It's so much more than that. I'm glad you just spoke on that part.
For sure. But
we just talked about knowing each other for 20 years, man. Let them know how you got started, man. Because you was on that other side, not the American side. You was on that, them Canadian, them red.
Well, I am American. The misconception is that I am Canadian, but I'm from Romulus, Michigan. Born and raised in Romulus, Michigan for 28 years. And I looked up a pro wrestling school back in 1996. And it came down to Body Slammers Gym in Lima, Ohio, owned by the famous Al Snow, who had not come into his own yet. He was still an indie guy back in '94. And it was Scott D'Amore's Can-Am Wrestling School in Windsor, Ontario. And I was around 16 in 1994. So I couldn't start yet, but I got invited to a Midwest Territorial show at Inkster High School, which I believe they tore down. I don't think it's there anymore, the old Inkster High School. And Al Snow invited me down, and I met Al there for the first time, and I also met a young Scott D'Amore there for the first time. And I had to make a decision on what school to go to. And ultimately, long story short, because I'm not going to bore everybody, I clearly picked the Can-Am Wrestling School in Canada, which goes back to you saying I was on the other side. And I did a lot of my training in Canada. I started in 1996 there. And I've been going ever since. I haven't stopped. I mean, I have had injuries throughout the years, but even then you still rehab your injuries. Like, I never actually walked away from wrestling in those 24 years. I came close a few times because it's, as you know, it's frustrating, and your ego, not even ego, maybe your self-esteem can get beat down after years and years of doing this. And I considered it. I want to say in 2014, I considered maybe taking a break, and then some things happened ultimately, which eventually led me to Impact, which we can get into later. But yeah, I've been doing this for 24 years, and that's basically how I got started.
So was wrestling always your thing? Because we just had C.W. Anderson on the show, and he was talking about he actually got signed to play baseball at first, turned it down to be a wrestler.
Well,
so I always a thing growing up.
Yeah, like ever since I can remember, like I've been enamored with it, and I always wanted to do it. And I said this on Tommy Dreamer's podcast. I watched Kurt Hennig and Bret Hart wrestle a match in 1991, and I'm never saying that I'm comparing myself to those guys, but they were smaller than normal. Like, they weren't Hulk Hogan sized, they weren't 6'5", 300 pounds. They weren't jacked. So you look at guys like that, and it says, like, man, if they can do it, I can do it. And I didn't come close to either guy, but that was always something I always wanted to do ever since I could remember. And then you get into the school system and the college system, and when you're a little kid, and I'm glad we're touching on this, because this also goes into something I want to touch on, people following their dreams. When you're a little kid, they tell you can be whatever you want in life. Like, when you're little, that's what they tell you. Being they, meaning parents, aunts, uncles, cousins, teachers, authority figures, librarians, police officers, anybody that you look up to as a child will tell you that. And you say stuff like, wow, I want to be a firefighter when I grow up. And everybody goes, cool. And you go, hey, I want to be an astronaut when I grow up. And they say, hey, man, you could do whatever you want. Mine was, I wanted to be a wrestler. And people go, okay, that's cool. But then something happens when you become a young adult. You graduate high school. And you still, for some of us who have that dream, you say, hey, I still want to be a wrestler. And people look at you when you're getting like a senior in high school, and they go, you can't do that. I actually went on a date with a girl back in 96 that she basically, it felt like an interview. She's like, what do you want to do with your life? And I told her I wanted to do something in pro wrestling. And she was like, well, how can you support a family? You can't support a family doing that. Like, you have to have a plan. And I was like, well, who says I can't? Like, that is my plan. So, I went to college. I went to community college for one semester because that's what you're told you have to do. And I'm not saying I'm against college, but college wasn't for me. I always had pro wrestling on the mind. And if you can find a way to follow your dreams and go to college, especially in the year 2020, you absolutely should get your degree. And you should push forward to get that degree, because if you have a degree in the world of pro wrestling, it actually will benefit you farther from the business aspect. But after one semester of going to Henry Ford Community College here in Michigan, I had an opportunity to join wrestling school. I was working at Toys R Us at the time. And I worked at Toys R Us for 22 years before they went under. And as Toys R Us was going under, Impact was taking off. And Impact wasn't originally part of my plan, but it did happen. And if you want to ask me questions about that later, we can. But my point to the men and women, boys and girls listening out there is, yeah, don't give up just because people tell you you can't. Like, this is my only job at the moment. And it has been for the last 3 years. It took me 20 years to get to this point. A lot of hardship, a lot of, going into the hole in debt and everything. But if you have a dream, whether it's a pro wrestler, astronaut, fireman, stuntman, bounty hunter, whatever you want to be the best dang person you want to be at it. And just because you grow up, don't allow people to tell you that you can't do stuff, because that's where so many millions of people go wrong. Like, you get one life to live, and you should do it the way you want to do it, as long as it's safe and not self-destructive, So yeah, that's basically the message I wanted to get out for that.
Oh,
sorry if I rambled.
No, that's great. So what is it like? You have that dream, you want to be a professional wrestler, you want to be able to do it. You go under training, wrestling school, and you take that first punch, you take that first bump. What's it like? Is it a rude awakening? I mean, what's it like, when you're breaking your hand?
You realize it's the hardest thing you've ever done in your life, and you start to second guess your life decisions. That mat is way harder than people anticipate. The first mat I ever took a bump on felt like movable concrete. And all the calisthenics that they expect you to do, from the squats and the push-ups and the sit-ups. I was a heavy kid growing up. I was 305 pounds like my junior year of high school. So I did not go in there with any type of athleticism or like naturally gifted athletic overtones about myself. I separated my shoulder. I started November of 96. I separated my shoulder in January of 97. And it put me out for months. Because I'd never experienced pain like that. Like I can handle pain now because of 20 years of doing this. I'll separate my shoulder now, and I'm already back in the ring 5 days later, like attempting to do stuff. But back then I took like 9 months. I took like 9 months to recover because I didn't understand how to do pain like that. But it's literally one of the hardest. Think of the hardest thing you've ever done in your life athletically, because Whip will tell you, and then times it times 10. It's that freaking hard. Whip, you corroborate with me?
Daryl, he is not lying. In my training days, I was with Doug Chevalier. He was connected to the Canadian side as well. And I was in Wayne, Michigan, and yeah, he's absolutely right. It's one of the hardest things you ever do. You sit there, you watch it as a fan. I understand the term, Mark, John. I never like using it too much in a disrespectful way, but I know it is what it is. But man, you never have a true understanding till you get in there. And to piggyback off this point, bravo, I thought I was the only one. When I first started training, before I started training, I sent there was something in the back of a magazine, and it said you get a book called the Inside Secrets of How to Get into the World of Pro Wrestling.
Yes.
When it came to my house, my mom saw it first. She was like, "I know you don't want to be a pro wrestler." Like, she would have thrown the book away. You know what I'm saying?
Oh no!
Because back then we barely even knew how to get in the business.
Oh, you had to know somebody that knew somebody that knew somebody. Now all you can do is just Google pro wrestling schools and a whole bunch of stuff comes up.
With that being said, that's actually my next question. I was watching a video. You did some stuff with Impact where you were training some guys. And
Yes.
you actually mentioned on the video about you ain't just a shiny shirt wearing dude. You was getting in their ass. Would you
Yes,
like to talk about that a little bit, man?
Yeah, that was people that don't know me. Whip, you've known me for 20 years. I'm a very serious guy. I would never dress this way in my actual life. I can be a funny guy. Like I can joke and I can laugh, and I think I'm somewhat amusing. But people that don't know me see me carrying around Mr. Mundo, this fluffy dog that people seem to love, and they see me in these shirts and they see me acting like a buffoon on TV, so they just assume that's the guy. Like, I've had many people that I know go, "Oh wow, you know that guy from TV?" And they go, "Wow, is he really like that in real life? Like, that's weird." I'm like, "You're like, no, he's not like that in real life." So when we did the gut check, for those of you who haven't seen Impact Gut Check 2020, look it up. What happened was a gentleman spit in the ring during training session that I wasn't there, and I found out about it. And they tried to yell at him when I wasn't there, and it didn't really, like, he didn't want to hear anything they had to say. So I found out about it, and I went crazy. Like, because, you know, it's not even a matter of saying, hey, that's disrespectful. It's disrespectful and it's dirty, you know, like if we're on pay-per-view or if we're filming television and there's a reason to spit on somebody's face, absolutely, get it done. But when you're in school and you have one ring, it's not like we have a change of canvas in school. It's the only ring we have. Other people have to come in it after you and wrestle, and who wants to wrestle in somebody's spit? So from my point of view, the guys in the contest at the time just knew me from the guy at TV. So I think it was very lackadaisical, and it was, we'll do what we want, and we're going to get ourselves over on TV, and we're going to do whatever it takes. And hey, I respect that. Like, you sometimes have to be cutthroat in the world of wrestling, but I wasn't going to let that, you know, fly without actually addressing it. And everything you saw there, none of that was scripted. That was actually me getting somewhat angry. And that was me being toned down for TV. Like, I have to control myself on TV. I could get really angry, but it was rather intense. And I let them all have it, and I punished them all for one guy's mistake, because that's how you have to do it. Because now all these guys that get punished, that have to do 500 squats, are now going to look at the guy that spit in the ring who doesn't have to do any squats. And that's what you do. You turn people against each other, right? It's all mind games. I yelled at him, and while I'm yelling at him, he's not doing squats, and everybody else that's innocent's doing squats. Now they're going to hate this guy for the rest of the event, and they're going to be like, wow, screw that guy, and it's going to just make the competition more interesting. So yeah, if you haven't watched it, look it up. Gut check Impact Wrestling 2020, and you can see everything that we're talking about here.
For sure. Now, I gotta ask you, man. Like I said, you did a lot of work in Border City Wrestling. I know you traveled all over. Is there a big difference, do you think, Canadian wrestling and American style?
There used to be. What year did you break in with?
I was 98, 99.
Okay, and I broke in 96. So we're in the same generation. Back in the day, you know, not to sound like two old fuddy-duddies, there was a clear difference in Canadian and American wrestling. Canadian was more grappler based. You know, like if you look at like somebody like a Chris Benoit, who I know nobody talks about anymore because he did horrible, terrible things. But I'm talking about his body of work, not the horrible things that he did, you know, at the end of his life. But like the Bret Hart grappling, the Owen Hart grappling, you know, there used to be a mat technician grappling mentality with the Canadian side of wrestling. The American was very character based in the 90s, especially on TV. Everything was character based, and with it being the year 2020 and me being in the business 24 years, I would say there are still styles, but it's a worldwide wrestling world now. Japan has mixed with Mexico, which is the Lucha Libre. That's mixed with Canadian. That's mixed with American. Everything is mixed now, and there are still certain styles, but it's more of a worldwide style now than it used to be in the 90s and early 2000s, because it's a global business. Like I'm sure if you have people listening to this podcast, they could be listening in other countries. Back in the 90s, we couldn't do that. So it's one of these things where we have the technology. We don't have to watch VHS tapes to learn things anymore. We can just click on a link, see something from Japan style, and then say, hey, I'm going to do that in my next match. And then you blend everything together. So that's my answer on that.
Man, see, you touching on so much. You throwing it back too, man. You just talked about back in the day when we had to send videos out to get.
Oh my God!
Hope that they looked at it. Hope that they opened the mail.
Yes.
A week, 2 weeks later, or whatever. We couldn't just have the YouTube links.
You would have to call them and see if they actually watched your video, and 90% of the time they did not watch your video.
And just, you're right, and just spin, you were like, yeah, sure. But with that being said, what led you to Impact? And I know, but let the viewers, let the listeners know.
It's a very long story, so I will try to condense it as much as possible. And if I can't, I will try to be as interesting as I possibly can.
Okay.
I did a tryout after about 16 years in the business, and not doing anything on a national television level, like ever. I never did any extra work. I never got any tryouts on a national level. I did a Jeff Jarrett seminar for his up-and-coming GFW promotion that he was trying to push that came to Windsor, Ontario. And I did this seminar, and at this point in time, I had nothing to lose. Like, I put 16 years into the business. I wasn't nervous. I would look around and I would see everybody in the tryout that was nervous. They would ask who wants to cut the first promo, and everyone's all like, "Oh, not me, not me." I wouldn't grab the mic. I was like, "That's why we're here. Like, that's the point." So I showed a certain bit of confidence in something that Jeff Jarrett and Karen Jarrett liked. So when they made their decisions on some of the people that they liked, they all went to dinner afterwards. They brought my name up, and Jeff Jarrett brought my name up to Scott D'Amore, who helped host the tryout. And Scott D'Amore, in all fairness, was like, "Bravo! Like, he hasn't really done it. Like, you like him out of every, I wasn't the only one they liked. There was a bunch of people they liked out of that. Congo Kong was one of the people that they loved out of that. Idris Abraham was one of the people that they loved out of that. So multiple guys got looked at, but just after 16 years of doing a whole bunch of nothing, Scott was blown away that they liked what I had to do. Now some time goes by, and GFW looks like it's going to start something up, but they don't really have anything for me creatively as far as being on-screen talent goes. So I was pulled into the office by Scott D'Amore, and he says, did you ever consider being a referee? And I was like, no, I had never considered it. But like, at this point in time, after being, in the business for 16, 17 years, being 38 years old, whatever you want me to do, I'll do. If you want me to wash toilets, I'll be the best dang toilet washer that I could possibly be. I just want to contribute. I just want to say, hey man, I work for some type of company, any company. So I was told to start watching referee tapes and become a referee, because I was going to ref Jeff Jarrett's first GFW tour in Timmins, Ontario, which is like a 14-hour drive from Windsor. So it's about a 15-hour drive from Detroit. And I ref the whole show by myself, start to finish, 7 matches for the first time out of the gate. Never reffing a match before in my life, just doing what I watched off of TV, but having the knowledge as a pro wrestler to know what I expect from a good referee and to emulate it the best as possible. So I did it. Jeff Jarrett pulled Scott aside, I was told, and said, how long has he been refereeing? And Scott said this was his first day, and they were extremely impressed by that being my first day. So I was told that I was going to referee at GFW once that became a television show. That's what I was being groomed to do. Let's fast forward to a couple years later. Companies take time to get off the ground. It's not something that just starts overnight. So Jeff Jarrett had spent X amount of months trying to get GFW to become a thing. And in the meantime, Dixie Carter had sold off her portion of Impact Wrestling, because there were rumors for years that Impact was going under, and she finally sold it off to Anthem Sports, which is a Canadian-based company. Jeff Jarrett and Scott D'Amore got called in as consultants, and they weren't supposed to be there for a long time. They were just coming in there to kind of help the company see where things went wrong, see how they could fix things. And in the meantime, they went there for the first month and they assessed the situation, and they knew they had their hands full. So they had a lot of work to do. So they knew they were going to be there fixing stuff for months. So I eventually got a text from Scott D'Amore, and it said, we would like you at Impact Wrestling. We don't have anything for you, but we will do our best to find you some kind of work so we can put some kind of money in your pocket. But we want you here, no heat. And for those of you that don't know, heat is something that, you get in trouble with somebody and they hold it against you. No heat if you don't want to go. And I remember texting Scott back and saying, Scott, I can't create an opportunity sitting at home from my couch. You guys are giving me an open door policy. I'm going to drive my butt to Florida, 23-hour drive that I got there in 18 hours. So I may or may not have sped, allegedly. And I got my butt to Impact Wrestling, and I brought my ref gear and I brought my wrestling gear, because you always have to bring both. That's the #1 rule. Whip will tell you, always bring your gear.
Yes.
And they made me a judge for the Grand Championship for for Moose's Grand Championship against Cody Rhodes. And that was a fun experience. I remember asking if I could referee at any point in time that first loop out, and I was told no, and I asked more than once. So I was eventually pulled aside, and I was told very respectfully to stop asking. They had just re-signed Earl Hebner, and they had just re-signed his son, Brian Hebner, the great Earl Hebner that everybody knows, and their other referee, Brian Stifler, and they had all locked them in for 2 more years. So I was told, we have referees. They know you have your gear. Please stop asking, because we were set. And I said, fair enough, but I'm not going to drive 23 hours and not at least give myself a fighting chance to ask. I have to go home and look at myself in the mirror. If I go home and look at myself in the mirror and realize I didn't even ask, then what was the point of me going? So they respected that answer. Fast forward to a couple months later, I'm still doing the judge for the Grand Championship thing. I'm doing a great job at that. And then I'm doing all sorts of errands, anything that I possibly can. I'm picking people up from the airport. I'm taking care of people in management's children, like they needed to get picked up from like SeaWorld. I picked them up from SeaWorld. And what happened was at the end of the night, I took care of Cody Angle, which is Kurt Angle's little boy, Karen Jarrett's son. And I bought him lunch all day, and I took him out, and I played with him, and I did whatever. And at the end of the day, I dropped Cody Angle and Karen Jarrett off at their hotel, and she tried to give me a $20 tip. And I didn't accept it. I said, I don't need your tip. Thank you, but no thank you. And Cody says to his mom, he says, Mom, we got to do something for him. And she says, baby, what do you need? And I said, I would like to work here. Like, I would just want a chance. I want to show that I can referee. And if I'm good, you guys have a good referee. If I'm horrible, you don't ever have to use me again. So Karen Jarrett went to Jeff, let him know the situation. Jeff went to Scott, because Scott ultimately had to pull the trigger on it, because how many times have you been promised something in wrestling? You're going to get, right?
That's a whole nother show, baby.
Yeah. You're going to get looked at. Things are going to happen. And then somebody actually has to make sure and follow through that these things happen, because there's a lot of people just saying things are going to happen. So, they came up to me, and Scott made sure that I got one match on the show. And I was a referee, and I got to learn from Earl Hebner and Brian Hebner and Brian Stifler. And it ended up, I did so well that they kept bringing me back in referee form for the next few months. And I got to learn under those guys, especially Earl Hebner, for at least 4 months before they had to leave the company. Which ultimately, when Earl and Brian had to leave the company, that left me like the only referee standing, which, you know what I mean? You feel bad, because these guys helped teach me and mold me for television, because I learned all my mistakes on the air, which is scary, right? You get thrown out there and you don't know what you're doing. So you have to learn on the cuff. But they leave, and there was an opportunity for me to become the senior referee. And I could never fill Earl Hebner's shoes. Even to this day, I could never, because he's great. He's Earl Hebner. But that was the position that opened. And if I didn't take it, somebody else would have taken it. So I went with it. And then I was a referee for a long time there before the career change. But that in a nutshell is my impact, how I got there story.
Yo, Daryl, I know you got some questions for him, but I want to jump in right quick. To the listeners, are you hearing this game this man is giving you? Like, he's putting you up on what to do to get to the next level. He already said he was in the business for 16 years, but he was not scared to do whatever it took to get on the show. John, you know what I'm talking about? We got guys that ain't even worked 6 months that don't want to help put the ring together.
Oh, I know. We see it all the time.
They don't want to come early to the show. They want to walk in an hour before the show. A green bean wants to tell a guy that's been in the ring for 15, 20 years, he want to get his shit in.
Yeah, it's a weird business, and that was the reason we didn't know people that had wrestling schools back in the day. The guys that came before us tried to protect the business and keep all that stuff out, but it was inevitable. You know what I mean? I'm not trying to say I'm better than anyone, because I'm sure guys back in the 70s and 80s will look at me and be like, wow, we should have never let that guy into the business, meaning me. But but it was one of those things where, like you said, you taught under Doug Chevalier. Like, they were tough on us because if we could take it, we were, in their mind, we were worthy to work along in their business with them. If we couldn't, that's how they weeded out the pretenders, you know?
Now, John, we also had formerly the D-Ray 3000, who was an Impact superstar back in the day.
I was his first match, by the way.
Oh, man. Woo.
September 9th,
right here.
September 9th, 2000 in Livonia, Michigan. I was the first man in front of people that D-Ray 3000 ever wrestled. There's some knowledge for it.
Y'all got a scoop right there if you didn't know that, man. But
yeah.
One thing D-Ray was talking about, man, it takes a minute to have your voice in the ring, meaning that to know you as a wrestler. How long did it take you to really know I'm John E. Bravo? You know, we go we train, but how long did it take you to know that I know my character, I know me?
It's a double-sided question, and I'll do my best to answer it and clarify what I mean by that. There's two Johnny Bravos, Whip. There's the one that you know on the independents that became kind of like a cult favorite of people, the serious guy with the Russian haircut that'll beat your ass and will be funny doing it and make you laugh and do his best to make you look good and make himself look good. And then there's the guy with the dog and the shiny shirts. If you put the guy with the Russian haircut and the serious demeanor on television, with no disrespect to myself, nobody's going to care. That gets over in Michigan. That gets over in Canada. People respect me because I've been around for 2 decades, and they're like, this guy's pretty entertaining. But if you expose that character to a worldwide audience that Impact Wrestling has, no one's going to care, and they're going to change the channel. So long story short, with the character that I am now, we did an angle where I became a heel referee, which never works in wrestling. It rarely does it ever work. Danny Davis did it. Nick Patrick did it. Charles Robinson did it. And usually never lasts long. It never lasts past a couple weeks or a couple months or whatever. And I was told the same. I was told that I was going to be John Morrison's manager, and it was only going to be for a couple weeks. And then eventually I would get my comeuppance, and I would be taken off the TV. And then I eventually would make my way back to being a referee. It's been over a year, and they haven't killed the character. And I don't see them killing the character anytime soon. And that goes back to your question of how did you figure out who I was? To figure out who the serious Russian guy was probably took anywhere from 14 to 16 years. To figure out who this person is that you see on television just happened a year ago. Now, I started in 96. So you're talking 23 years to figure out this guy that you see on TV that you can watch that carries a stuffed dog named Mr. Mundo that bends over backwards to tie a Valkyrie. I watch a lot of Bobby Heenan, and I'm not comparing myself to Bobby Heenan, but Bobby Heenan was so funny. Like he would do stuff that he would put himself out there to look like a buffoon, but when he could be serious, he would be serious. And I'm doing my best to try to emulate that. So you put me, and I've had matches at Impact. I told I would never referee at Impact, let alone have a match. I've had multiple matches at Impact wearing these clothes. Because it was originally said, hey, bring your gear when I turn into a manager, we're going to have you wrestle a match. We're going to have like Willie Mack and Rich Swann beat you up, or we're going to have Jessica Havoc beat you up. And everyone came to the agreement that I needed to wrestle how I look, because like people aren't going to care about the other guy, which I agree with. So the character that I play now originally was obsessed with John Morrison. You know, he's a good looking guy. I'm a straight man, but like you got to admit, John Morrison's he's shiny. He's beautiful. He's got sparkles all over. My first day with him, my clothes were very bland and boring. And I watched that on TV, and I was like, okay, I got to like distract from how good looking he is. So that's how I came up with this whole outfit that I'm wearing now. You know, if I distract by looking this way, you're going to lose the fact that I don't even hold a candle to how good John Morrison looks. And he left the bigger and better things for himself. Personally, I would have loved for him to stay, because I feel where I'm at with Impact Wrestling would have been the place to be at. But he's his own person. He helped me find my voice, if you'd say that. And then they put me with his wife, Taya Valkyrie. Now, the character that I take with her, because it took her and I a while to figure out how we interact with each other. We're all men in this podcast right now. We've all done stupid things for ladies in our lives. We've all put ourselves out there, and we've all done stuff that we look back and go, man, why did I do that for that woman? Especially when there are better people out there for us in life. A lot of times we ignore those people or those women, and we go with the people who's not the best for us. So the approach that I take with Taya is twofold. The character's still obsessed with John Morrison. My character is still obsessed with John Morrison. So I'm with Taya because I'm hoping someday he comes back. That's how I approach the mindset of it. But until then, I'm also obsessed with her. And I do everything she asks me to do. I jump in the ocean to go get a rubber ball if she tells me to. I try to impress her because she loves Pomeranian, so I get a fake dog. I name it after John, who is Johnny Mundo. John Morrison was Johnny Mundo in Lucha Underground. So I named the dog after Johnny, almost like I miss Johnny. So what you end up doing is you end up finding your voice and your character by just maturing in life and realizing, hey, maybe what I had in my head to be on TV is not what the rest of the world wants to see. No one wants to see the angry Russian guy. So if you start having fun with it and you just start enjoying it and you start entertaining people and you let all your preconceived notions of what you think the world needs to see of you and then just kind of take whatever ball they give you and run with it, that's exactly what you see before you. I don't know what I'm doing. I just literally took this ball and said, I'm going to be the best possible manager I could possibly be. And that's hopefully what I'm doing so far.
That's cool. Now, from a creativity standpoint, like how much leeway do they give you? Is it kind of, you've heard of some promotions where they have a box of gimmicks and this is you're this guy, and then they basically almost prescribe or write for you everything you need to say. And in this case, it seems like you had a lot of input into your own character.
Yeah, they when I first went to this character, I asked them too, how do you want me to dress? And they didn't know, and that's very important. That's why if you could look back the very first day I was with John, I was very boring and bland because I had 13 hours to throw an outfit together. So then, I realized, like I explained earlier, I need to look shiny. And then like the whole Mr. Mundo thing, that they didn't tell me to do that. That Taya loves her Pomeranian Prince Presley in real life. She's always showing his pictures on Twitter. She's always talking about him. He was in a couple skits. And I was like, it would be funny. Myself and the production manager at Impact were shopping for props for Impact one day. And I was like, it would be funny if I found a stuffed Pomeranian to walk to the ring with us because she loved Pomeranian so much. And this is my way of trying to impress her. Because like I said, we've all done dumb things for girls that, to try to impress them. So that's relatable. That's why people find it funny, because any guy watching me carry around a stuffed Pomeranian to try to impress a girl has been there, done that. There's not one of us alive that hasn't bent over backwards and done something foolish to get a girl's attention. So that taps into the reality of life. Everyone can relate to it. It's something you can laugh at and be entertained with, which goes back to, that's why nobody, in my opinion, worldwide would actually care about the angry Russian guy that I was. Not that I was a Russian gimmick, because I wasn't, but that's my nationality. Like I'm genetically Russian. So that's why I keep saying Russian guy. But when you can strike that vein of reality that the masses can relate to, you go with it. And they never really told me to act this way. I just figured it out on my own. And they point you in a direction of what they want you to do, and then they leave it up to you. When I used to, a quick example, and then we can go on to the next question. When I used to manage John Morrison, he would come up to me and be like, can you sing? Like, I have an idea that we should sing in a promo. And I'm like, no, I can't sing. But wouldn't that make it funnier that if I sang, even though I'm tone deaf and it would sound awful? So him and I sang That's What Friends Are For in the middle of a promo once. And it worked because we were having fun. It was getting to the point where we were heels, and we were at the ECW arena, the 2300 arena in Philadelphia, and our promos would come up on the screen, and people were starting to cheer us because we were just two guys having fun. and everybody can relate to that. Kind of like us three right now, we're having just conversation. This doesn't really feel like an interview. This feels to me like three guys sitting down at a bar, even though I don't have drinks and Whip is the only one that has drinks, and we're talking about life.
You gonna keep talking about me drinking, man. You gonna keep talking about me drinking, man. You
brought it up first, but my point being is if you can find that thing that everyone can relate to, that's when you just hold on to it and squeeze it for everything it's worth.
And that's awesome right there. But I gotta ask this, going from when it was TNA to Impact, back in the day, TNA would get a lot of stars from the past that might have been popular from other promotions. Now, you guys might have one or two, but a lot of times you bringing in guys that might have been popping on the independent circuit, but didn't have a big name nationally. I'm gonna tell you, I like that. How do you feel about that, them bringing in guys that were just doing their thing on the independent circuit, putting them on a national platform, and where do you see, who should we look out for?
Well, that's the great thing about watching Impact Wrestling is they create their own stars. They always have. Without Impact Wrestling, there is no AJ Styles. Without no Impact Wrestling, there is no Samoa Joe. Without Impact Wrestling, there's no Christopher Daniels or Frankie Kazarian. These are guys that were created to be stars. TNA back in the day, now Impact, and that's what they've always done. There are guys forging their own identities, like you said, from the indies, and getting a chance to have a platform on a worldwide level and become stars. And they will become huge stars someday, or they won't. And then, we'll get somebody else that'll step up and take their spot and want to be a star. Who to look out for? It's funny you bring that up because they did a poll and they had the fans vote. The 2020 one to look out for actually went to Willie Mack. And I don't know if you're familiar with Willie Mack's
Absolutely. Big fan.
work,
Big
but
fan.
man, he's so talented. He just won the X Division title. He looks like JYD, but he does moves that you would never expect a man of his size to do. He can do high flying. He can do mat grappling. He's literally one of the most talented individuals that I've ever seen in my life. And you can't sleep on Willie Mack. He's the one to look out for. Daga is another one to look out for. Daga is based out of Mexico, and there's no doubt in my mind he's going to be a huge star someday. He's just been with Impact probably for a little under a year. And every time he has a match, it's literally my jaw's on the floor. Chris Bay is another one based out of Las Vegas. He's another one to look at. I can't just pick one, Whip. You got to go with a few.
For sure.
Chris Bay is phenomenal athlete. Like his national worldwide career is just starting. So some of our local guys, Rohit Raju, Hakeem Zayn from Michigan Independence, he's coming into his own. He's finding his voice finally. The same with Cousin Jake from Impact Wrestling. All these guys are getting a chance to shine and show what they can do, and they're turning heads with management. They're turning heads with fans, and that's why it's exciting to watch Impact. And I'm going to do a cheap little plug here. Every Tuesday at 8 o'clock on AXSTV, spelled AXS, you can see these guys that we came up with, guys that we know from Michigan, that guys that were like on our level that are just killing it right now, and they're finding their voice, they're finding their personality, and they're finding their soul in the world of pro wrestling. And if, as a wrestling fan, if you can't watch that and appreciate what they're doing at Impact Wrestling, there's no reason to be watching wrestling at all.
Man, and it's funny. You did your plug. I was about to do it anyway. I was going to talk about you guys being on AXSTV with a very owned by a very prominent billionaire, if you will, millionaire.
Yes.
And also on Twitch. But just to jump back on what you said about Willie Mack, yes, he is amazing. So everybody listening, if you like Mr. Keith Lee, you're going to love Willie Mack. And I'm just saying, as a brother in the business, a big guy, you don't get a lot of us that work the way these young men work. So trust me, if you haven't, check out Willie Mack, man.
Yep. If you narrowed it down to just one, that's why he was my first answer. They're all talented, but he literally he's on his own level, personally, I believe.
I mean, for me, it's an exciting time to be a fan. Back in the day, way back in the day, they had these territories all over the U.S., right? And then it became down to the big two, the big three. Now we're back to the, with the internet, with YouTube. Now we're back to territories all over the U.S. again. It's a great time for talent, like, through Impact and other areas, to be able to see these guys from all over the world, give them an opportunity that they didn't have like 15 years ago.
And it's exciting to watch them on the independent level and then do stuff on a national television level, because so many guys and gals out there deserve it. And if you go to a VFW hall and you watch a Rohit Raju or a Cousin Jake, and then all of a sudden you see them on TV the next week, you're like, wow, that guy that's on TV who just wrestled here like a couple months ago, like, good for him. Like you said, it's very exciting to see.
Now, I do want to say this. There's some people that think, like you said, you get on national TV, but Impact is a stepping stone. But I don't believe that. I don't believe that. I read Chris Jericho's book one time back in the day. He was referencing, even when he was in ECW, when he stepped in, they were like, man, there ain't no other competition. We're just as good as everybody else. So what would you tell people that's listening in that think Impact is a stepping stone, and tell them how good it really is, man?
Has Impact been a stepping stone in the past for people? Absolutely. That's what wrestling is. But this current roster we have, with, and I'm not just saying this because I'm a company dude. Like, I legitimately mean this. This current roster that we have, from Willie Mack to Sami Callihan to Rich Swann to Cousin Jake to Daga to Chris Bay to Trey Miguel, the Rascals. I could name everybody. It literally is filled with a roster of everybody who wants to be there. Everybody wants to be there, and they want to make it the best product that's going today. Like, it's very much a family atmosphere, and wrestling weeds itself out. If people don't want to be with the company, they won't be with the company. Everybody's there by choice. Everybody's staying by choice. And that's why we bring some of the best wrestling product to TV each and every week, because you legitimately have people that love their position with the company and are excited about turning this company around. It's a challenge, right? Like Impact got some bad press a couple years ago. We're kind of past that. We've made some waves. We're slowly rebuilding our reputation. And who wouldn't want to be a part of that? Who doesn't want to make their place in history and say, hey man, I was a part of the Impact rebirth, if you will. I'm a manager right now. I don't know how long this ride is going to last. It's been over a year. But there's not many managers out there, and I'm doing my best to emulate some of the best managers in business and still find my own voice. If I can contribute to people looking back and going, wow, managing's pretty much dead. You got Paul Heyman, who gets along with his client very well. If you actually look what I'm doing with Taya, the fact that I'm her manager and we don't get along is unique, because every manager usually gets along with their talent. Here I am. I'm not that I'm a buffoon, but her and I fight constantly. She was the longest reigning knockout Impact champion in Knockouts history. So like, we found ways to win. So even though we constantly fought and she's constantly mad at me and I'm constantly, bowing down to her, like, that's a dynamic that you're not going to see in any company. So not to toot my own horn, but I feel like I'm breaking ground, because I can't really remember many managers that don't get along with their clients but still find success. And that's the goal and the story that we're trying to tell.
I think that's the manager is a lost art. Because I think the beauty of a manager is not just being, a mouthpiece in interviews and stuff like that, is being able to get your client over when they're not there.
It's
back
so
in
true.
You talk about Bobby Heenan, you talk about people like that, having him do commentary, he's getting over, the people he's managing at the time.
Yes.
They're not there. And that's one of, I think one of the issues today is, I don't think people have enough time. They got a lot of time for matches, not enough time to get their character over. I mean, here we're at a time where, we're in quarantine. Instead of having these guys, we need more guys like you on podcasts and using this time in YouTube and the other shoots, kind of get their character over. And like, who is this guy? And you being a manager, you have the opportunity to do that for people who may not be getting that screen time.
Yeah, it's 100% true. And like you said, with the quarantine, there's some different circumstances. So in this last set of TV we filmed, Taya wasn't there. So there's going to be, for the next X amount of weeks, she's not there. But we tell some stories with me being there that I'm not going to get into. I'm going to tell you to watch every Tuesday at 8 p.m. on AXS Television. to watch the stories that I'm going to tell over the period of the next 4 weeks. It literally is some of the best work that I've ever done. It's funny. It's entertaining. How does a guy like this survive when his queen is not around because of quarantine? So what does he do? Does he go out? Does he stay in? Does he miss her? Does he not miss her? Literally, that's the story that we're going to be telling, and it's rooted in reality. And I guarantee you, if you watch it, it will make you laugh. It will make you be like, come on now. Because like I said, especially if you're a guy, we all can relate to dumb things we've done with women. So just stay tuned. And all of you have done dumb things for women in your life will appreciate me putting myself out there to represent all of us as human beings.
I'm glad you touched on that because speaking of women, Impact did something that nobody else has ever done. Tessa Blanchard, the heavyweight champion. Now, like you said, we talked about being back in the day. This wasn't what we did.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that, man? Seeing a woman as the champion and actually working guys like Sami Callihan, in which I told you, I'm gonna need you to get his autograph. I know I'm being a mark right now, but I'm a big Sami Callihan mark, so I need his autograph.
Let me tell you something about Sami Callihan. I absolutely could get you his autograph. I'm pretty tight with Sami. Sammy's a really mean, angry guy. And you already know from me talking about back in the day, I'm a really mean, angry guy, even though you can't tell with the way I look right now, because I'm a smart businessman. So Sammy and I get each other, man. We understand each other, and I'm pretty cool with Callahan, and I absolutely 100% could probably get you his autograph or get him to film some type of video message for you, because I actually am that cool with him. But back to Tessa Blanchard, she's been a phenomenal champion. She's been through a lot in her career, and being a woman, you get discriminated against, especially in wrestling. Women wrestling is very catty. Women wrestling, can be, wrestling in general could be very catty, but she's held her head up high. She's literally one of the nicest people I've ever met. She's been nothing but nice to other people that I've seen in my life. And she can, and I mean this with all due respect, she can wrestle like a dude, man. Like, she gets in there with Callahan. She gets in there with Brian Cage, and she can hold her own. Like, the stories that they're telling, guy versus girl, David versus Goliath, it literally is some of the most captivating television that I've ever seen. And I know a lot of the wrestling fans, some of the guys who are like, oh, I don't understand that. You know what? She's speaking to a new generation. There are tons of little girls out there looking up to her going, you know what? I can do that someday. You can't say that I can't go after the world championship, because I can be a world champion in a male-dominated world. And with it being 2020 and what wrestling has evolved into, there's no reason why we can't have that. There's room for everybody at the table.
Well, John, we've already had you here for almost an hour. I don't want to run all your time away. So we're going to talk. I want to see, Daryl, do you have any more questions for before we?
I got one question. I always like to throw something out. What was, throughout your career, what was a mark out moment where you're in the locker room, you look over and you see somebody, it's like, oh my God. As a worker, what's a mark out moment for you?
For me personally, I remember the very first mark out moment I ever had. I was on a Border City Wrestling show and on Ontario, Canada. And I was on the same show as Sabu. And growing up, watching Sabu on ECW on Pass, Pass used to be a big sports, it's kind of like a mini ESPN here in Detroit.
Yep.
Watching ECW on Pass, like, I loved Sabu. I wanted to emulate him. I wanted to be Sabu. I wanted to have shiny clothes, which I kind of ended up having shiny clothes like Sabu. And his wrestling style was so chaotic. And I remember feeling like, wow, like, I'm on a show, like, I felt super successful because I was on a show with Sabu. And that was the first ever mark out moment that I had. I remember, like, going home and just being on cloud nine the whole time, because I felt like I accomplished something. And then my name got into the Pro Wrestling Illustrated magazine with the results of the show. And so my name was in the same article as Sabu. And to me, like, that was like, it doesn't get any better than that. But fortunately, it did get better for me. But to me, that was the first time I ever marked out.
Now, maybe actually, that just made me think of another question. How many times have you been in the PWI 500? I was number 420 like once in my life. Shout out to RVD and Katie Forbes, by the way, Impact Wrestling. But yes, I was 420 once in my whole career.
I was only in it one time as well, and mine was 2009. Mine was 2009. What year was yours?
I can't remember. Johnny Bradford sent it to me. I want to say like 2011, 12.
Okay, so mine was 2009, and I was 434. And I remember thinking when I became a referee, wow, I'll never be in the PWI 500 again. But since then, I've been in there. My actual picture's been in there as referees, as managers. Like, I'm in there now. I don't want to say all the time, but whenever they show stuff on Impact and I happen to be involved in it, like there I am in PWI. So I've been in there since, more as a referee and as a manager than I actually have been as a wrestler. Because as a wrestler, I was only in there one time, and that was 11 years ago.
Y'all heard that at Scoop. Even though he's a superstar Impact, Whip actually beat him. I was 420. He was 430.
You did.
You heard it. You heard it. You heard it.
You did. You beat me. You were higher up on the food chain back in the day.
Well, John, I want to thank you for coming on. But before we close out, we got a segment. I finally got a name for it. It's called Ring the Bell. Ring the bell. You got 60 seconds to say whatever you want. Talk about what you got coming up. You personally, Impact Wrestling. Just give me that so we close out with you, bro.
It'll be real quick. And just watch me every Tuesday nights, 8 p.m. on AXS Television, Impact Wrestling. Find me on Twitter, John E. Bravo first, with the capital letter E and the 1 ST. But rather than like spend this minute getting myself over, I want to thank both of you for having me on. Whip, like, it means a lot to me. I've known you for 20 years. I don't get to see you as much because obviously life gets in the way. But like you're always one of those good guys that I will remember forever, and I will appreciate. And I'm honored that you asked me to be on this podcast. It means a lot to me that you think that highly of me to actually get me involved in something that you're doing. Daryl, it's nice to meet you. I'm not really going to dote on you too much because I don't know you, so no offense. But Whip, I'm very proud of the human being that you are. I see you out there on TV, on the news once in a while. You do eating contests, you do trivia contests, your involvement in pro wrestling. You always got your hand into something. And legitimately, there's not a lot of good dudes in pro wrestling, and you were one of the good dudes in my opinion. So please don't change who you are, man, because I appreciate you as a human being.
I appreciate that, man. We since we talking, we was behind us. We was at a backstage at an independent show one time a couple years ago, and we got to chop it up. We have a picture of me and you together, and I got that picture on my wall to this day.
You know what? I remember that was at MPWA. I remember that.
Absolutely, man. Well, John, thank you very much for coming on the show. We had a great time with you, man. We're gonna talk to you later, okay, bro?
All right. Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate both of you. Thank you.
Thanks so much for coming.
Take care, man.
Have a good day.
Oh, and then
Daryl, another great show, man.
Another great show. Another great show. He's extra giving to us, giving his whole background, his history, his struggle. And that's one thing that I really appreciate from him. It's a struggle. It's not all easy. It's not all fun and games. I'm on TV in 3 months of starting.
It's so much more than just this thing on TV. It's great that people see the final product, but it's so much more, man. But I want to thank John, just like we thank all the other guests that we've had on the show, man. In our first month, we've been blessed to have some really great people on the show, man.
Yeah, no, it's been a great run here, man. It's been fantastic meeting, a lot of these great talents, and the hits just keep coming. It hasn't stopped yet. The train is rolling.
Man, I don't know what's going on, man. But you know what? I want to keep it with the people that I know we got coming up. Next up, you're going to get somebody from the Monday Night Wars.
Well, you know what? That's why I'm in the newsroom here getting stuff ready. I'm getting ready for Scott Hudson. That's going to be a great
man. That Scott
interview.
Hudson is going to be big. Because we go to the base on what it was like being part of the Monday Night Wars, what it was like to jump ship. Because if you don't remember, he was the first commentator on that first Monday Night Raw where they had Buff Bagwell versus Booker T at the WCW match. We're going to talk about that. And if you haven't already, make sure you go back and watch all our other episodes. Matter of fact, follow us. Instagram at the Whip Show Podcast. YouTube, put in the Whip Show Podcast. Facebook, like us, the Whip Show Podcast. Matter of fact, if you are a company and you want to advertise with us, you want to be a sponsor, just email us at thewhipshowpodcast@gmail.com. You can have your company be a sponsor for this dope podcast. But you know what? We're going to get out of here. We're going to see you for the next episode. So I am Deshaun Whipdog Whipple.
And devastating Daryl Pace.
And we will see you next time on the Wrestling Heroes and Insiders Podcast, a.k.a. The Whip Show. Take care, guys.
Take care.